Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the first episode of Riley's Opinion Loses Him Subscribers. And today we'll be discussing Tales of the Abyss, one of the most disliked Tales games in the line, and one of my favorites because I'm all counterculture and edgy, if you can't tell by my outfit. So, Tales of the Abyss was released in 2005 and then re-released in 2012 for the 3DS, which is the version I played. It tells the story of a young nobleman named Luc von Fabre, a duke's son who lived a cushy, sheltered life due to a kidnapping in his childhood that scared his parents into never letting him outside. He has amnesia. But unlike most amnesia stories, this event happened like 10 years ago during the kidnapping, so he knows his name and his general environment and all that. He just doesn't know some of the fundamentals of how the outside world works, as he doesn't remember any of it from his childhood and hasn't been allowed to re-experience it since. Let me go ahead and say this video is basically the avatar of spoilers able to bend plot, characters, concepts, and feelings. So I don't recommend watching this till you've played the game yourself. When I make videos like these, I do so with the intention of providing someone who's already formed their own opinion a look into mine, so we can fuse opinions together and make the ultimate opinion. Moving on. Luc is a fucking asshole. He's a dick. He's rude, pretentious, and doesn't take responsibility for his actions. Do I blame him for this? No, not really. His sheltered lifestyle has left him unable to process things like that. This is a case of bad parenting, kids. Still, from the very beginning, Luc does express compassion and empathy for those around him, regardless of their social standing or class. One of the first actions you can perform in the game is to go talk to the gardener, who will tell Luc that he's going to get in trouble for talking to someone of such low birth. To which Luc responds dismissively, not really caring about such things. Luc's childish nature is one of the main reasons the game is disliked by the audience. Many Tales protagonists have pretty nasty flaws and need to do a lot of growing up, but that's because character arcs are a strong story component to Tales games. Luc just starts way lower on the ladder than most of them. In this world, there is also a, I guess best word is concept, known as the score. The score tells both the past and future of the planet, detailing every step of the way from the major wars countries will fight down to what an individual will have for breakfast that morning. Reading the score requires a special ability a select group are born with, and is mostly controlled by the leading religious group, the Order of Lorelei, who regulate which parts of the score individuals are allowed to know. The score also comes in the form of rocks that are orbiting the Earth, and obviously only ones that have fallen to Earth can be read, so large chunks are missing. The score has some minor causality affecting abilities. In a hard time travel setting, changing what you ate for breakfast one morning can create a whole new timeline. But in Tales of the Abyss, ignoring the score's recommendation for your morning meal isn't going to shatter the great overarching plan. Still, there are individuals who consult the score for every single action, whereas others use it more like modern astrology, a sort of guiding advice thing that you don't need to consult for everything, but is very influential in major decision making. It's also mostly agreed upon by society that following the score is the best means of leading one to prosperity, as the score does say, as far ahead as people have read, that there will be an era of prosperity provided people follow it. Okay, that should be enough backstory for now. Let's get to the main point. Luc's big fuck up. Now, Luc has a sword master he trusts more than anyone else, Van. Van is an older gentleman, a major player in the Order of Lorelei, and an exceptionally skilled fighter. He's one of the first people we meet, and he seems to be the only person who respects Luc's sheltered opinions. His younger sister, Tyr, is the main female protagonist of the game, as well as your party main healer and secondary caster. The first thing Tyr does is try to assassinate Van, and when Luc tries to defend him, a hidden power Luc has activates and blasts them both to another country. Tyr makes it very clear that her brother has some kind of plan that she feels he needs to die in order to prevent from happening, and Luc spends the majority of the first half of the game playing devil's advocate for him. Luc has no idea what his power is, what it does, or where it comes from, but he has it. One day, his party is sent to provide relief efforts to a mining city where evacuations are nearly impossible and the city has become shrouded in a poisonous mist called miasma that's slowly killing the citizens. Van is also there, and he leads the party down into the mines, towards a room where the miasma is at its strongest. He then leaves the rest of the party there to tend to the sick and dying, and suggests Luc follow him. Further in, they find a marvelous golden pillar in the shape of a giant tuning fork in a room full of magical effects. Van tells Luc that this pillar is the source of the miasma, and if he uses his power on it, it'll stop a miasma and save everyone. Well, this is Van we're talking about, Luc's most trusted friend and confidant, so of course he raises his hands and gets into position. Then Van does something weird. Luc is having a hard time activating his power on his own, so Van says some kind of trigger phrase that activates Luc's power by messing with his head, and Luc blasts the pillar. Suddenly, the earth begins to shake. The party runs into the room, shouting, wondering why the earth is shaking. Van hops onto a bird and flies away, but not before telling his sister how to survive what's about to happen. And then, the entire city, along with a major part of the landmass, falls into the earth, through the earth's crust, and into an endless ocean of liquefied earth and miasma. The entire sea is deadly to the touch. That pillar, along with many others like it, were the only things holding up the crust of the earth away from the sea of miasma, and Luke just took it out. Thousands of people die. Your party is forced to watch as a child sinks into the miasma sea, never to be seen again. Everyone in that mining city, except for your party, is dead. Tyr, being Van's sister, knew about all of this. That the crust of the earth is held up by pillars, that the inside of the earth is deadly, and what would happen if the pillar was broken. But Luke never told her what he was about to do. He never talked to anyone about it. He never even thought about what a pillar would be doing under a mine, or how a fucking metal rod might be producing the miasma. He just heard Van say do it, so he did it. Miasma outbreaks weren't too uncommon on the surface. They happen from time to time. You just evacuate the citizens and then wait for erosion and time to replug the hole in the crust. Tyr had no reason to tell her friends what was going on, as she was sworn to secrecy, and she had no reason to suspect the pillar might be taken out. Regardless, she accepts her part of the responsibility. She should have known Van was up to something. Then, everyone turns to Luke. Luke is despondent. He's freaking out. He's very protective of human life, as we'll discuss in the next video on this game, and thousands of human lives just ended. His team scolds him. Why didn't you come talk to us? We could have stopped you. But it's not my fault. Van tricked me. It's not my fault. And then his entire party turns on him. They abandon him. Most of them hate him. Even his best friend is disgusted with him. All the while, Luke is screaming that he had no responsibility in this. He was tricked. He was just a tool in all this death. Yeah, Luke, you are a tool. Through a complicated series of magic, Luke is able to perceive what his party is doing after they abandon him. They talk about him, and as they talk, it finally gets through his thick skull that he needs to change. This is why you see art of him with both long and short hair. He cuts off his hair, one of his major pride points, to show that he's starting the process of becoming a different man. Now, why is this so important? Why is this worth talking about? Why does the party believe Luke is at fault, and why does he think he needs to change? Well, let's look at this problem from a less intense angle. If someone is texting and driving and they kill your best friend Greg, do you hate that person? Is that person wrong? It was an accident after all. They weren't trying to kill Greg. It just happened, and it was beyond their control by the time they realized what was happening. Well, yes, but actually no. Not even a little bit. That entire event was within their control. They could have just not been texting, and then they would have noticed Greg in time. Actually, here's a more accurate scenario. Let's say you go to the doctor for a sickness. The doctor prescribes you some medicine. The medicine then kills you. See, you had a genetic condition that makes you unable to process that type of medicine for some reason. This genetic condition was listed on your paperwork when you went to the doctor. He wasn't familiar with that condition, but the medication you took for it wouldn't have interacted poorly with your new medicine, so he didn't see a problem with prescribing you the new stuff. In this case, the doctor is at fault for your death. He should have looked into the issue that you had that he didn't know about. It's malpractice, and it caused your death. The information was available to him, but he didn't pursue it, didn't double check, and now your death is on his hands, even though it was an accident. This is the same thing with Luke. He listened to a source he trusted, didn't think about it, didn't double check his information, he just blasted down ahead. Luke had plenty of reasons to doubt Van. He'd been traveling with his sister, who had been explaining to him that Van is dangerous. He knew his power was of a destructive nature, but one with a limited range. So it didn't really make sense that he could just plug the hole or poof the miasma away with it. Van hadn't explained what the pillar was, why it was here, what it did, or how blasting it would help. He just told Luke to do it, and he did. There was no fact-checking, no tests, no nothing. Thus, even though someone had told him to do it, Luke was equally at fault for those deaths. Denying that fault was so abhorrent and disgusting to his friends that they couldn't be with him any longer. They couldn't trust him to think critically. He couldn't trust them to come to them and get their opinions for major decisions. He had no place in an adventuring party out to save the world. I think we can all get why this is uncomfortable for a lot of people. Most folks go through their entire lives without thinking critically about most of the stuff that's happening to them. What's more, society encourages a listen to those above you, do what we say kind of mentality, but that's not good. That creates armies of people who believe they aren't responsible for their actions. It creates bureaucrats and leaders who can't be held to questioning till after they've done the terrible thing they're going to do. I don't want to turn this into an anti-vaxxer video, but this is basically the logic anti-vaxxers work under. The lesson here is that you are always responsible for your actions. Short of someone grabbing you and puppeting your arms, you choose to do the things that you do. If you choose wrong, it's because you hadn't done your research. Research is more than just looking at one trusted source and saying that they know what's best for you. If you're thrown under the bus and left in a situation that you didn't know could possibly happen to you and therefore weren't prepared, that's one thing, and a degree of forgiveness is owed there. But if, say, you decide to become a parent and have 9 months to think about it, and you still do something stupid that kills your kid, that's on you, buddy. There's more to this topic, and I can't wait to hear all the things that people say in the comments. As always, if someone brings forth a counterpoint or an interesting argument I find compelling, I may make a second video on this topic to talk about it. If not, then I'll see all you nerds next time for a video on the morality of killing in Tales of the Abyss. Y'all nerds have a nice day.